So in the USA, which is the biggest like app store user in the world, there's a category called reference. That's where the Bibles are and like dictionaries and things like that. We were like in ninth place within a few months.
Let's go. Welcome to Building Bigfoot, where we're going to be talking about building your business profitably. I'm really excited to introduce Erin Walker. I've known him for a little while now, and he's a really super cool entrepreneur based out of South Africa, and has built a very cool and fast growing app called Pencil Bible. It's this really neat application that solved the problem that he had and is now building out. And there's a journey to get there, as every founder knows. It's like you have a dream, you know where you're going, and then you start to encounter challenges along the way. But as long as the vision is clear, you will get there.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited to talk a little bit with Erin today so he can share his story. And before we dive into some of the strategies he's using to grow his business and getting the word out there, I'd love to talk a little bit about Erin. So maybe you could share how you got to where you are today. If you were to rewind, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, to where you started to have the birth of this idea.
Okay. You want the long version or the short version?
Let's do the long version.
The long version. Okay. One of the skills I want to be better at is storytelling, but I'm going to do my best, Jonathan. And I also want to mention the town I live in here in South Africa is predominantly Afrikaans speaking. So it's the language, like a home language here. It sounds German to English folk. So my English isn't as good as it was in varsity in university. But so bear with me, please. If I sometimes miss a word or forgot how to pronounce a word, I'll get to it, or I have to Google it maybe. Anyway, how did I get here? Was born and bred here in Uppington, South Africa. It's now a big town, but it was a small town back in the days, 1984 when I was born. And my dad and his dad has been into retail, more specifically retail around car parts and equipment rentals and scrap. Sort of like a daily business, not a cool, sexy, clean business. And so they were based in Uppington, where I was born. And I went to school here. We grew up here. It's a countryside. I don't know to what town to compare it to there in Canada, where you're from. But yeah, it's like a rural small town. We're sort of next to a river, and around us is desert. We're in the Kalahari Desert, they call it. So it's almost like an oasis with a river flowing next to the desert, and they call it the Green Kalahari because next to the river, it's on both sides. You got vineyards, a lot of vineyards here, and then next to that, if you go further out, it's desert. So that's why they call it the Green Kalahari. It's beautiful from the air. Yeah, man. So I grew up. Always been curious. I was privileged that my parents exposed me to technology from an early age, and I was actually very curious and loved fiddling with computers. And I remember the day we got our first color printer, playing with it many years ago. It was quite a big moment in my life. And I just grew up a normal kid, played outside, did sports, and after school went to uni here in South Africa, one of the most beautiful places in the world. I think my friend Peter, your friend in Kelowna, he says Kelowna is like the Stellenbosch of South Africa. So it's this beautiful town between the mountains where there's a big university and vineyards and mountains and sea next to that. And it's amazing. So I studied accounting because I thought, in South Africa, basically, you can either become an engineer, a lawyer, a doctor, or you become a chartered accountant. So that was sort of the four big career options that's sort of risk free and, you're guaranteed a good job with a good salary. So I went the risk-free route. I was a very confident person at that point of my life. And I finished in 4 years and then went to work for Deloitte big international auditing firm, to do the articles training. And I was there for 2 years. And I actually after 3 years, but after 2 years, I said, this is not for me. It's so boring. So I got the opportunity to do an MBA. So I went to Stellenbosch Business School to do an MBA after that. And in that year, I also met my wife, which in Cape Town, Stellenbosch. And my wife also actually comes from Uppington. And my dad always teases me. I said, I'll never marry anyone from Uppington. But there you go. I married a girl from Uppington at the end of the day. And also said, I'll never come back to Uppington and work here. But here I am. So, yeah, man.
That's funny.
Yeah, that was around 2010. And it was just after, I remember in the USA, we had the financial crisis, 2008, 2009. And that sort of not came over, but it had a big effect on the South African economy as well. So after my MBA, I struggled to find a job. And to be honest, man, I didn't know where I was back then. I think I had money on the mind, but I didn't believe I can be an entrepreneur. And I was starting to get curious about tech again. And like around the time I got married, I got really into tech again, into building websites and apps, and curious about startups and so forth. And that's where the passion just reignited, and I was full on. It's all I wanted to do with my life. I remember when my first, I have 3 kids. My first one was born. He's a boy. His name is also Erin. I remember I got this epiphany, because when your kid is born, you get sort of this natural high. And I was like, one of the things I want to do in my life is invest in startup companies and sort of mingle with entrepreneurs and tell stories, have dinners, build networks. So that's sort of where my mind was going whilst working in Uppington in the family business, which is still in retail, and it grew a lot at that stage. So yeah, that was more or less my passion, but I was more one entrepreneur than entrepreneur at that point, So I read all the books, love reading. I listen to podcasts, you read the blogs, you follow people on Instagram and Facebook, but I didn't really do anything, waiting for the right idea. And I tried some small e-commerce projects here in South Africa, which didn't really work out. The most successful one was a site called Yuppie Baby. So here in South Africa, we have a site, e-commerce company, big one, that recently sold for 500 million, called Yuppie Chef. And so it's basically just an e-commerce site with premium cooking equipment and anything premium food, which is pretty well. So I thought, hey, I'm going to do the same for babies. So I made Yuppie Baby, to sell premium baby products. And all I did was import them from Amazon to SA. At that point, it was pretty cheap to do. But about 3 months in, the rand dollar exchange got very bad in terms of for us. So it was just it was 8 rand a dollar. I think after 3 months, like 11 rand a dollar. And Amazon wasn't so keen to export to South Africa anymore because the packages get lost along the way. So yeah, that was the most successful at that point. And yeah, man. So yeah, I was here raising kids, building a family, growing the family business here, and we grew a lot. We have the biggest Mitre store in the country now here, and we dabble in properties and forklift rentals, equipment rentals. We have a few franchises like Suzuki cars and motorcycles, like you guys will know Polaris. It's probably the way you'll pronounce it there in Canada. We have the Polaris franchises and a truck franchise called Iveco. So yeah, it's all more or less based on outdoors, motors, motorsports, parts, etc. So it's not the most exciting type of business, but it's a third generation family business, and it is doing really well. So yeah, that's more or less. And during the holidays or evenings, weekends, I'll dabble and see, is there something I can create? And then around 2019, I had this idea for a Bible app. So basically, many of us read our Bibles on our iPads. There's a lot of apps for reading a Bible on iPad, and Apple brought out the Apple stylus. and but you can't really use it for anything except for scrolling and maybe highlighting a verse, but still you need to click on something and then click on something. So it's not a natural drawing tool. And I was like, yes, I wish I could, draw naturally like you would do in your Bible with a highlighter or a pencil, make a note, maybe doodle a picture or whatever. And there was no product like that on the market at all, not even close, which is weird because normally, you get an idea as an entrepreneur, you Google and it's like 10 of those products available already on the market just from the first, front Google page. So this was what do you call it? Like abnormal. Like there still is no product like it. I don't know why other people are not trying it. I'm glad there's no competition. So maybe I mustn't vocalize it so much. But yeah, man. So I've the budget. I didn't want to spend too much money on it at that point because I had a lot of failed projects over the years, and I didn't want to flush more cash into something and then it's just another failure. So my plan was to get pay a designer to sort of draw a designer like a nice user interface, user experience mock-up, some wireframes for a app. In my head, I had more or less a picture of how it should work and how it should function. It's actually super simple. You can imagine a Kindle, reading the Kindle on an iPad book, and then having art tools next to it, to draw and write and highlight, etc. So I got the designs 2020 March, just when the pandemic started, and my plan was to do a Kickstarter campaign to raise money for that. That's a brilliant idea. Problem is, I'm in South Africa, and you can't do a Kickstarter if you're South African. So the loop around was you create a company in the US. There's a lot of companies who create a company for you. So it's pretty simple. You fill out a form, pay $500, and you get like an EIN number, and even open a bank account for you, and you get a company registered in Delaware, USA. So simple enough, but it was a pandemic, so it took like 3 months for that to happen. Finally, it's done. I thought, okay, now I can create my Kickstarter campaign. Then they said, no, you must be a US citizen as well. I was like, okay. Next best option is Indiegogo, the crowdfunding site. So I went to Indiegogo, and luckily if you have the US company, you can create a campaign without being a citizen. There, you can be a citizen anywhere in the world. Good. So I did that. Made quite a professional campaign, in my personal opinion. Even made a video, and I went and researched a lot how crowdfunding works, and looked at all the best campaigns and copy what looks good, to make it look professional, like a professional company did it. Even had someone copyright it for me, and I really tried to make it a excellent campaign. It didn't really work. I think it got, you get the lower hanging fruit. So after launch, we got like I was trying to raise $8,000. I think we got like 500 or something. So what I did is I started joining Facebook groups and following Christian influencers on Instagram, trying to sort of DM them to promote the campaign. But I think it got zero.
Oh, there's so many things to figure out, hey, when
Yeah.
it comes to promotion and how to market and spread the
Yes.
word. And yeah, so it's literally like, okay, go on Instagram, who can I talk
Yeah.
to? Go on yes,
Yeah.
go, but
Yeah.
keep
And
going.
you,
Yeah, this
you
is
need
this is
you need
this
to
is great.
hustle, eh? So there's a big group of that's literally just women who do Bible journaling on Instagram. So that was sort of my target, because in the beginning the app was sort of a Bible journaling app, was sort of my idea for it. Not necessarily just a note taking app. And so I targeted them, but without any success. I even downloaded software that sort of not, I couldn't remember what it does, but it sort of targets them, and you can sort of get the emails, but that didn't work. Anyway, I joined a Facebook group though called Christians in Tech, I think it was called. It's based in America, and that's where I got a lot of open doors. I met a girl there called Christy, and she's sort of been a mentor for Pencil Bible. Back then, it was called the Bible for Creatives, by the way. It wasn't the Pencil Bible yet. And she worked at Facebook, and basically, yeah, she helped promote the product for me with a group there. And even after that, I still was short on, because you need to make your target in Indiegogo before they release the funds. So if you want to raise $8,000, you only get 7,900. They say, sorry, it's unsuccessful, and then the money goes back to whoever gave the credit card information for funding. But I think we were on, I still needed like $5,000, let's say. And she gave it all. She gave me like $5,000 to finish the campaign. So yeah, so she's been great. I even put a name in the about page.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
No, it was a blessing, man. I think if that didn't happen, the app probably wouldn't have happened at all. So yeah, I was pretty stoked. I got a developer an essay to code it in Swift for Apple iOS, and paid a 50% deposit. And after 3 months, nothing. And he sort of not ghosted me, but he had personal problems and a lot of things. And I said, sorry, man, I've been waiting too long, pay back the deposit. I need to go find someone else. So, and at that point of time, I don't know why, maybe it still is, finding a developer for me was the scariest part of the whole process thus far. I don't know, maybe, I don't know why. I think it's a trust thing. Like in our business, I do the hiring, but you advertise, you get 100 CVs, you pick one or two, maybe that seems good enough, and you interview them and you sort of hire them and you build trust. But for the developer side, over the internet, I was very unsure, how to go about doing this and finding a quality developer for a good price. Because, I only had the $8,000 budget sort of to get an MVP ready. But I stumbled upon a guy in Austin, Texas. He said for $5,000, he'll build not a minimum viable product, the MVP. He said he'll build a MIP or something. Minimal, I don't know. I can't remember, but it's a quirky, cool idea. Anyways. So yeah, he started, I paid him a deposit, and it went very well. Like daily updates, we had Kanban, Trello reports, and every day I could see what the progress is. And he was a great designer as well, and he had some good ideas. And he first wanted to get the foundation of the Bible correct, so it's a nice Bible experience before we add drawing tools to on top of that. So yeah, it went well, and then suddenly, this was now 2021. Around June, it sort of disappeared. And I was like, waited a week or so on, and I said, later I asked him like, what's going on, and he said he found a permanent job. So he basically had an agency, but it failed, and he said everyone left him. So I was like, I was down in the dumps, because I wasn't, again, sort of want to go look for another developer.
I just gotta stop you, pause
Yeah,
you for a moment. You've said like 4 or 5 things that each thing you've said, I'm like, oh, this is something I want to like
sure.
talk about,
Sorry.
um, and dive into, because you no, this is great. You've touched on so many parts of the entrepreneurial journey. So the the thing you just said now as well, I think it's like really relevant to a lot of people, because there's this experience that this app developer is having, where he started an agency, and he said like all his customers left him, and he feels like he's failed. But clearly, from your experience, he's the best developer you've worked with so far. He's
Yes.
organized, he's using Kanban, he's
Yeah.
communicating frequently. So he's actually doing a really good job. And how often do we get inside of our head thinking, this is failing, when in fact we are being successful at the very thing that we're doing? And customers will
Yeah.
grow. Like when you're working and building any business, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
You're sharing with him with me now. If he was still within an agency, I'm sure you'd mention his business and he would get even
Yeah.
more awareness. And um I think that's like such an important thing. And then, but even back to like your comment about Polaris, I laughed because yes, Polaris is very well known in Canada,
Yeah,
especially like for snowmobiles and like adventure. And I just thought it was funny, like the perception, because you're like, it's just a boring business. But I'm like, Polaris in my mind is an exciting business because this means fun. Like you're going to go into the
yeah,
mountains, you're going to the snow, you're going
yeah,
exploring. Um, and I have a lot of buddies that, or people that I know really well who uh, that's what their favorite thing to do is in winter,
yeah,
especially with
yeah.
the
I can
snow
imagine.
bikes. Have you heard of the new snow
Yes,
bikes?
snow bikes.
Yeah, so
Yes,
they
yes, I know.
yeah, so they basically convert a dirt bike into
Yeah,
a snowmobile, and and it's just a ton of fun. But yeah, so you spoke about that, and I thought, okay, that's interesting. You know, talking about like perception and how different it can be
yeah.
depending where
Here
you
we
are in
do
the
the
world.
quad biking on the
And
desert. That's sort of the, and farmers use it to work. That's sort of the market we have for the Polaris. Yeah,
no, it
yeah.
makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. I've often thought about this. What's like common or ordinary in like where you are is so extraordinary elsewhere. Because I was in Nashville a few months ago, and while I was in Nashville, you can't help but bump into a musician.
I can
Like
imagine.
every, and not just like a musician, but like a musician who's like, oh, I've seen your face on a billboard.
Oh wow.
I've seen you like, you know, I mean, like I've heard you somewhere. Where are you? Oh, you're that country music singer that I've. Okay, I now know who you are. And you literally like you turn a corner. Like to put this in perspective, I was in a recording studio and I'm surrounded by these musicians and the producer he seems to really know
Yeah,
his stuff, and the songwriter guy seems to really know his stuff, and know that like the singer seems to know his stuff, and I don't recognize any of these people's faces, right? Because music is something you listen to.
yeah,
I don't see it, and so um, I'm sitting there. I'm kind of looking around, and it turns out the songwriter has written like multiple number one hit songs. The producer is Grammy award winning
crazy.
producer. The singer is from American Idol. The like I just laugh
No
because
ways.
I'm like to Nashville, this there everybody's just like so like this is normal, this is whatever. But you take that and you put them anywhere else in the world, like bring them
Yeah,
to my city, put them in the um the arena, and it's going to draw a really big crowd because it's like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
this
yeah,
is person who's coming from, you know,
yeah.
wherever, it's Grammy award winning. It's but in Nashville it's
Why,
just
what were
normal.
you doing at in the
And
recording studio,
I just find that funny.
Jonathan? What were you?
Oh, I was
Oh,
I
just
was
a
a
tourist.
tourist.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I got to go there and literally with a bunch of other entrepreneurs get to experience what it looks like to write a song,
Oh
record a
wow, that's
song
awesome, man.
with the yeah it was a pretty cool experience. And it's funny because I thought it was something that they
Yeah,
just did. Like I thought, oh, this is
yeah.
like a normal event, but it turned out that they'd never done that before, where they actually brought the they brought a bunch of people in, and because we were part of the process, so it was like, okay, the songwriter was writing the song, but he's picking all of our brains, like for
No
lines and
worries.
lyrics, um, and my great contribution was uh the beat. There was this one line that nobody could get
Yeah,
the sound right, and I was like, but what if you sang it like this? And I just changed the beat, and it was like it clicked for everybody, and I was like, oh, that's great.
okay. Oh
I had a
wow. Are you a
contribution.
singer?
uh yeah.
No. Oh, okay.
No, no, I have a guitar, and I sing to
Okay.
my girls, and they're like 4 and 6, so they
Awesome, man.
kind
That's
of
great.
sing. But
I also have a guitar, but I can't play
the
it.
I again, this is like it just relates to that fact. It's like to my 4-year-old and my 6-year-old, they're like, Dad, how
Yeah,
did you
so
learn to do
impressive.
this so good? To any musician, they're like,
Yeah,
you have some
I
work.
understand. Yeah,
um the but so that was that was interesting. And then, so then you go through this journey where you're like, okay, I want to get more involved in something you're really passionate about from a young age. Like you talked about the
Oh yeah,
printer
first color printer.
and how
Yeah, that was
exciting
like
that was to you.
1992 or
Yeah,
something.
the color printer. And then you start this Amazon business and you face all of these hurdles. And you're like, okay, how do I overcome these hurdles? And you're like, okay, well, there's some that are maybe insurmountable, but then you face new hurdles in trying to do a Kickstarter campaign. And you're like, okay, but you don't give up. And so there's a lot of things that you had to get in place. I mean, South Africa to the United States, that's a long
Yeah,
distance away. I mean, you're talking, I don't know how many, 7,000 miles,
yeah.
something like that. And so it's quite the um, obstacle hurdle that you would have had to navigate and figure out how to do. How did you figure that out? Like, who told you that that was possible? How did you
Google, Google.
get that far?
I just Googled like how do you do a run a campaign from uh, it's a non-approved country, for example. And I think even on the Kickstarter page they explain, it's not a loophole. It's just I think it's for legality reasons they structured it that way. Indiegogo, you could have done a campaign from anywhere in the world up to 2020, but after that they integrated with Stripe. So only Stripe supported countries could do Indiegogo campaigns, and South Africa was not one of them at that point. So yeah, sort of just need to find a. And I always wanted a USA company. I think I knew about Stripe Atlas, that program there, or like department or the, there for creating companies. So
Yes, yes.
since that came out, I was like, oh, I can't wait till I can create my own one. Like a use Stripe Atlas, or like I used First Base to create a US company. And I actually paid last week my first US income tax, and I haven't even been there. It's crazy, eh? On Pencer Bible's revenue. So yeah, the internet's an amazing place, man. You can do anything from anywhere.
It's that is so
Yeah, that's
fascinating,
crazy.
isn't it? That you've now paid income tax to the US
I
and you've
think
never
I
been
think
to the US.
it sounds weird, but that was sort of my proudest moment through this whole project so far. I was like, I actually paid income tax because that means, you know, we actually made money. We did something, and we're paying tax to the government. It's a very small amount, but still, it feels like then you feel like a real business. I don't know if it's stupid, but it's
Yeah.
for me a significant moment.
No, it does. There's these moments. I remember so a guy we mutually know, Dan, he said that for him it was when he started to get like mail in his mailbox
Oh
that was
yeah,
bills.
now then you know it's real.
He's like, he is like, it's a real business. And so he loved it. He loved going and paying his bills, and until one day it just took an entire day, and then he started to outsource that. But uh I think that's a really funny how that works. But speaking of which, um I'm going to be in Boston at the SaaS Intensive in June, June 4th, June 4th to June
Yeah.
7th, I think. You should come. Be be a
Yeah,
great
no,
first
that's a
time.
dream, man. Hopefully soon, but I don't think I'll make June this year. That's gonna be a tough one. I was privileged enough
Okay.
to do a lot of traveling so
Well,
far
if
this
you want
year.
to, let me know.
Through the business, we won a lot of competitions. I went to Poland and Czech Republic a month ago. 2 weeks ago, we went to Mauritius. So it's an island, um, and there's a lot of trips planned. So, but that's definitely the dream to come to a SaaS conference or anything in similar to that. To do some networking. Have dinner with a bunch of entrepreneurial nerds. That's still a dream. So I appreciate the invite, though. I appreciate it. Have you read Dan's book? You just mentioned him. Buy Back Your Time yet? Okay, cool. Yeah,
Yes, yeah, yeah.
I also finished it last
Yes, I
week.
have.
Very good.
It's good.
Um,
It's funny. I bought a copy, and
yeah.
because I wanted to support him, and then
Okay,
he gave me a
cool.
copy.
Yeah,
So now I
awesome, man.
have
Yeah,
two copies.
I'm
So I'm gonna
also
find it for
buying a
you
bunch of
soon.
physical ones, and I'm giving it to my dad and some of my business friends who have run their own companies because I think it's a beautiful blueprint on how to implement, or not implement, but something I had on my mind for a long time. But he articulated it and systemized it, and so simply and easily. It's something I'm going to do in this business as well. It's a lot of things we're going to change, things I can delegate to an executive assistant and so forth. So yeah, no, it's a brilliant book. I loved it.
It is. It's very good, and
Yeah,
it's very clear. That's one of his
yeah.
gifting is clarity. So so then you talked about this person, this lady
Okay.
you met, who then made a pretty substantial
You could call it a donation.
contribution in some
Yeah,
donation, like the those early supporters. They have more of an impact than I think
yes,
people realize. Um, for me, many years ago, I started a clothing company, and I remember this guy. He came to me, and I kind of knew him. He was in my social network, but I wasn't like um, close to him at anything. But he came to me and he says, um, I want to buy one of your shirts. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Thanks, man. So I sell him one of my shirts. And at that time I had started, I was like in the trunk of my car, literally. So I pop open my trunk, and I got all my shirts neatly stacked like a clothing shop would, but in the car. and and he buys this item, and he says to me, afterwards, he's like, I just bought this because I really want to support you. I think
okay,
what you're doing is so cool. And that
yeah,
meant the world to me. That like I was like, the fact, like I didn't know where he was like financially at
yeah,
the time. I knew he was a young guy. I didn't, maybe that was like,
yeah,
maybe that was all his money he had, but he was
yeah,
investing it in starting this thing. And I remember
yeah.
that was so impactful. So what did it feel like?
Whew. I remember like a few weeks before the campaign was due to close, you set a date on Indiegogo. I think it was around August. I I was on holiday on a beach town here in South Africa, and it was raining, and I went for a run, and I was just crying to the Lord and say, please help. I want a solution here. And I don't know how long it was after that, but a week or two, and then I just saw like these big amounts coming in, $500, $500, $500, and I could see her name. Um, and yeah, I felt relief and excitement, also like suddenly fear, like, oh no, now this is real. I have to do this. They trust in me. Um, so yeah, but I was very happy, man. But and Also at that time, because it's already started the year before, I was quite in a hurry, to get the product out. In my mind, at that point, I thought it's like a month of coding. Then you have the app, and it's easy, it's done and dusted. Not at all. As you will see from the rest of the story, it's quite a process, and it's still not really done. And then the translations, the Bible translations, that's a whole other kettle of fish, another story, which we'll also get to hopefully. So yeah, no. But to answer your question, I can't really remember exactly what I felt, but I was very relieved and excited, and also a bit of pressure of no, the shit is real. So yeah,
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 all of a sudden it's real.
yeah,
Like you've got to do it. That so what um so then of course that hits your first real fear, is how you described it, where you
yeah.
had to bring on a programmer. And like, what was it about that experience that was so um unknown or terrifying, considering you obviously have a lot of people
Yeah,
on your
yeah,
team?
we
And
have like in our business
yeah.
here, 128 people currently working for us. So, but again, yeah, it's you appoint people from your town and speak your language. You can look them in the eye, etc. Now suddenly over the internet, there's millions of developers and sites where you can find developer from Upwork to. There's so many. I found a lot, and you sort of, I don't know if it was overwhelmed, like, where do I start? Where do I find someone I can trust and afford? Yeah, a lot of the fear was, find a cheap developer, but still good. Um, and I remember the guy I appointed here in South Africa, our S developer. I met him 8 years ago, and I was still in contact with him. So that's how I sort of, you go with the familiar. That's just a human. nature to go with the familiar. So that's what I went with, and he quoted me a very cheap price. So I said yes. But normally, if you buy cheap, you get cheap. So that didn't work out at all. The second developer, I found, the app, the website Notion.so. It's like a note-taking app competing with all the other note-taking apps. It's pretty big now. So there's another site called super.so that uses Notion templates to build a website. And I used the super.so to build the Pencil Bible website, actually. But on there was a bunch of examples, and I found an example of a guy who made a blog, and he actually wrote about developers and, having bad experiences with developers and so forth. And he was a developer, so I contacted him, and he was, I think at that point, in Austin, Texas, or Nashville. No, he was in Austin. And he was also a Christian, which is good because it's a Bible app. And he coded in React Native, which is not the original iOS Swift coding language, but it's easy to code for iOS and then for Android as well. So that's sort of how I got to him, just by, almost want to say, browsing the internet. But as I mentioned, he got a full-time job because he wanted more stability and didn't want to do the whole agency thing anymore. All his staff left, and but I was very, very angry at that point because I didn't want to look for another developer. So I told him no, he's going to honor his commitments and finish the MVP of the product. And he said, okay, fine. You'll do it like early mornings, late nights. So then I waited another 5 months for him to get sort of an MVP out. And at that point, I started to search for another developer. And I must say those 5 months were excruciating long. Just waiting and waiting, like getting maybe a small update in a week. But again, I was strapped for cash, so I didn't. Yeah, I had a choice. Maybe I had a choice, but there's always a plan to be made. But I was sort of in a comfort zone, and I waited for him to finish the MVP. To find the third developer, which I'm still with now, I used Upwork. Made like a short list of 20 developers. A lot of the Indian ones I interviewed, and from Czech Republic, which is generally the more cheaper developers come from there. But they're still very good, and didn't find anyone I could click with, relate to, build a relationship with. So I didn't want any agency to code that. I want someone I can speak to regularly, build a relationship with. We don't have to be friends, but at least speak more or less the same language. And I found an American guy, and he referred me to Trout House Tech. It's also a company in the USA, and the owner there is Matt. And Trout House Tech, basically, Matt's mission is to bring underprivileged or people groups who aren't underprivileged or properly. What's the English word? I told you, I'm going to forget the word, but marginalized groups and so on. So he bring them on and teach them to code or something in that trend. So I contacted Matt, and then he said they'll take on the project. I had one coder in Africa. He was very good. We did most of the coding for the MVP, and that was 2021. Yeah, 2021 October 2021. So it's basically a year and 5 months after I started the project. And then it took another 5 months to finish it for release on iOS. That was in 2022, March 2022. That's when the first version released. And I made like $800 on the first day. Other thing I wanted to tell you about was the translations. So translations, for those who don't, or for your listeners who don't read the Bible, there's a lot of translations, and Christians are very picky. Some like the NIV, some want the ESV, some want the CSB, some like the Passion Translation. But each one of them sort of are owned by different publishers, and some of them are very big publishers with a lot of red tape. So it's been quite a process to get translations for the app. and most of the complaints come from people who still want the NIV, but these companies are so big and so much red tape, it's hard to get some of them. So that's also been a challenge in my mind. Originally, I thought, it's not too bad. Email someone, they send you the text.
I'm seeing a theme here, and you obviously are very good at
Well, I'm
overcoming
South
hurdles,
African, bro. South
because
Africans
it seems
overcome
like
hurdles every day. That's why we're the best entrepreneurs, in my opinion. Elon Musk comes from South Africa. That's why he's so good. We're problem solvers. That's all we do all day. We solve problems. That's
I,
sort of the world we're born into here. I humbly say, yeah,
you have to
yeah,
solve problems as an entrepreneur, and I think like that is such a good point. Like if you just normalize that and
yeah,
you say this is just a normal part of living, and you just make it part of, you have to do it anyways, you might as well figure out a way to solve
yeah.
those problems in a way that benefits a lot of people. Because if you can solve these challenges, well, then obviously there's going to be a lot of people using your app who are going to be able to benefit from that outcome. So yeah, so then you've got this publishing
Uh,
challenge. What happens
I just
next?
needed to get their foot in the door of one. I call it. There's free Bibles that are open to use for free. You can do with it what you want. You can print it. You can sell it. So I added those, but those are not the Bibles people read. It's like the old 1850 King James version and so forth. So I just needed to get my foot in the door of one premium publisher, and that was the ESV. Um, they also had a more not too complicated application process, but I took 2 weeks to write the application, and I had my mom copyright it, and I double checked it and motivated it, and then they gave me permission to put their translation on, and you sign a contract, which is also scary, sort of, um, uh, because you have to pay them a commission on sales of the premium Bible, which like the ESV we sell for $8.99, and they get, I think, on the ESV, like 30% of that goes to them. So once I had them, I could easily email another publisher, let's say Broad Street, who owns the Passion Translation, and say, hey, we're Pencil Bible, we're growing this fast, and we've got the ESV already with like a premium translation, and then this, okay, cool, you can add us as well. And so it sort of snowballed in that way, to opens more doors to more publishers. But for example, the NIV, which I've been trying to get for 3 years now, after long process and waiting, I got for the whole world except for the USA, because they have their own plans and also want to release. I don't know if it's a similar app, but I think it's more red tape than anything else. So it's something we'll revisit later on. Yeah. Yeah,
Doesn't sound
yeah,
very
they're owned by
Christian of
a worldly publisher called HarperCollins. It's a big,
them.
big, big publisher company. So, but yeah, but
I'm
yeah,
only
so
kidding. I'm
they
only
have their
kidding.
plans. Obviously, they can't just hand out willy nilly the rights to the text. I understand. So, well, I'll get it somehow at a later stage, maybe next year when they have a new season and new plans and so forth. So yeah, that's been a challenge. Getting the app done as you envision it and being usable, the user experience as you want it to be. Because I'm pretty pedantic. I'm a designer at heart, I say sometimes. So I want it to be perfect, but to get it launched, I had to cut some corners. You have to settle with second best or third best in some features or performance of the app, because you need to get it out there now so it can start generating revenue, so the revenue can fund more development. So we launched March 27 last year on my wedding anniversary while I was in Mauritius on the island for a holiday. And yeah, we made $800 on the first day. So I was super psyched. I couldn't believe I made internet money, which has been a dream for a decade. Um, yeah. So and that's sort of, yeah, and basically from there on we grew steadily. Uh, Interesting. Within a few months, we were in the App Store as categories. Something I'm very proud of. But it also shows you don't need a lot of downloads to rank. So in the USA, which is the biggest like app store user in the world, there's a category called reference. That's where the Bibles are and like dictionaries and things like that. We were like in ninth place within a few months. And I think at that point it was like 8,000
Wow.
downloads,
Great job.
and that got us in the top 10 already on the App Store, which was for me was amazing. It was like whoa, like I know how competitive the App Store is, how hard it is to grow and find a spot, but we got such a nice niche in having a Bible for the iPad. You don't, yeah, it's actually they said, yeah, go for it.
There's something.
Yeah, yeah.
Riches are in the niches. Yes. Um, there's something though that I think is really important is okay. The App Store's been around since 2008, and for a lot of people, they might feel, maybe they're like there's something that they're trying to like, especially if you're trying to
Oh,
build a
yeah,
YouTube channel and you're starting today. For
yeah.
sometimes
It's too
people might
late.
feel like they've
It's
missed
too
the
late. Yeah,
opportunity, they've missed the window, it's too late. But you've following a simple path of, I'm solving a problem that I had,
yeah,
I'm trying to do it really really well, I'm making the experience as good as I can, so the quality of the content is there. um, and all of a sudden, look, you're having success on the App Store. And I think that if you can have a success in a
yeah,
mature place like the App Store today, think how many more people are there now than there were in
yeah,
2008. So yeah, it's always nice to be one of the first, but if it like, don't let that stop you from doing the thing that you want to do today. So whether it's YouTube or some other channel that you're looking at, there's always an opportunity for somebody who is who has a
yeah.
passion in that
No, it's
area and is creating
absolutely
really good
agree.
stuff.
And it's helped for distribution as well because I don't worry about distribution at the moment or marketing for other reasons as well. But since it's ranked in the top 10 in the App Store, I get like 60,000, 80,000 views a day. And I think downloads were on 50,000, but people who actually use the app aren't a lot yet because the product is still broken. But we're releasing version 2 hopefully over the weekend, which fixes all the,
So you've had
yeah,
50,000 downloads.
more or less. Yeah. And
That's good.
I've got subscriptions. We're at
That's
1,200
really good.
subscribers at the moment, monthly and annually. For a pro,
That's awesome. That's really good. These are
yeah, for
great.
me,
You're doing really well.
the exciting thing is the product is broken. It doesn't really work uh, correctly. So I I don't even want to imagine it once it functions as we all want it to function. The users, I think it's gonna skyrocket. So we're releasing that. Yeah, go for it.
So now I saw, so version 2.0 is coming
I'm
out,
just
or
waiting
has it
for
already
last
come out?
bug fix, and then we submit it to the App Store, which could take anything from 8 hours to 30 days to get approved. So yeah, hopefully over the weekend we're releasing version 2, which has a ton of features that everybody's been waiting for. That's been very frustrating for everyone on the app. So
Yeah. So version
what
2.0
do you
though is a
mean
breaking change, right?
breaking change?
So in the sense that if I read that correctly,
Oh
people aren't
yeah,
going to be
yeah.
losing
So
their existing
we
notes,
took on new technology,
or
basically different canvas system. So it's basically, let's say you had VHS tapes or DVDs, and now you have digital. You can't bring it along onto the new version. So even within saying that, there's a bug on the current version that your notes and highlights disappear randomly after a week or a day, or I don't know. We couldn't find the bug, so it doesn't really save notes anyway at the moment. So it's not too much of a problem or pain that people will start fresh now with the new version. So yeah, so
yeah, no, that's good. the these challenges, um, you know, they I've heard you know, and you have an interesting perspective
Yeah,
because you're
very
obviously
mature.
working in a fairly
Yeah,
mature business, you know, at home, and you're also working in a brand new business, which is very much in the
yeah,
um start up phase. You know, it's like very much in that phase where it's the formation, you're getting you're um the best analogy I can think of for starting a business like this, having been through it myself, is it's like jumping off a cliff
yeah. I love
and then building
that.
the airplane on the way down and hoping,
Yeah,
yeah, and hoping that you get the
yeah,
wings on
something like that.
there before you hit the ground. And yeah, and sometimes you don't, and so you're like, you got the landing gear and you're sort of like, okay, brace for impact, but I'm not giving up. And so it's like I'm gonna hit that ground, but I've got my landing gear and I got my wings kind of half assembled, and I know I'm gonna be able to like
Yeah,
I'm gonna make it. And then
yeah,
and now I got to build an engine to get this thing back in the air. So uh it's very much that feeling and experience. It's one of the most fun and wild and personally growing things I think
yeah.
any entrepreneur
It's
can go through, because
terribly
it's a
frustrating.
real challenge. So what yeah, and the vision,
Yeah,
right? Because it's like you have an idea of what you're getting to, and now it's just like constantly leading and guiding and helping others to see that vision and hopefully get to that vision. So now, what do you see as the future for where you're going
yeah. So
with this app?
even with version 2 being released now, still a bunch of lesser irritating bugs that we need to solve, and foundations that we need to sort out to make sure everything's still saving and is working correctly. Adding more translations is a priority. And then I've already have a complete redesign plan in my head, but I first want to get the current version up to code and working properly and everyone happy. And then also the Android version, which I think a lot of people are asking for Android. So I believe there's also another opportunity to really grow the application, and hopefully it explodes there as well. And once that's sort of more, uh, yeah, once the redesign is done and we've got all the functions, and then I can sort of hopefully hire someone to sort of, I won't say manage the app, but take care of the daily stuff, and so I can focus on building more apps. Also in the Christian space, Bible space, like a version for kids. I've got kids from 10, 8, and 5-year old. So something that sort of more attuned to their liking, and that they can interact with. So yeah, I got a bunch of ideas. But first, we need to get this one running smoothly and generating enough revenue, for it to run without me fiddling and adding my own money in, and yeah, maybe add some employees and some support teams. Basically, I'm still doing all the support myself. I'm doing the accounting myself. I'm doing Facebook, Instagram myself. The little marketing that I am doing. So yeah, that will be the next step, more or less. Depends how long it takes. We'll see after this weekend where we stand. Hopefully, the app people will receive the app well, and it saves their notes. And yeah, that's more or less the plan, Jonathan.
No, that's very cool. What an exciting journey. And it's cool that we've kind of got to know each
Um,
other as you've been starting this journey. Yeah. So my
yeah.
uh is, looking back over the last few years, what would be some of the lessons that you've learned that um you could look back and say, okay, back then, um
Sure.
yeah, let's
That's a
start
tough
there.
question. I don't know, man. What would I tell myself 3 years, like if we can go back in time? Um, patience. Have a lot of patience. It's going to take a while. Like every time I think like, yeah, by March we'll be doing $100,000 a month, or by December, and then you don't even come close to what you think you can achieve. Development is so slow and frustrating. Um, you probably know as well, running a startup. So yeah, I will tell myself, have patience, relax, enjoy the ride. Something that maybe not necessarily to do with pencil Bible at the moment, but which I learned in life is one is to be present. And I read this great quote, which I saved here on my notes. I read it almost every day. Is remember, there's no greatness in the future, or clarity, or insight, or happiness, or peace. There's only this moment. And I think it's Ryan Holiday in one of his books. I got it. And yeah, it's just to be in the moment, enjoy it. Because once you achieve what you wanted, what then? So rather just enjoy the ride. You'll get there eventually. And don't lose faith. Risk it and take the chance. So yeah, that's the only advice I would be able to give myself. I think now, if you ask me in a year and we're doing $1 million a month, I would tell him put a second loan out on the house, get speed up development, get this thing done now. It's going to work out 100%. Don't worry. So yeah, it all depends.
So that's really good advice. I had a friend, same friend Dan. He was shared this advice, and he shared this with us. But take lots of photos. It's kind of like having a kid.
Screenshots.
Take lots of photos so you can remember this moment. You can remember, yeah, screenshots, or like yourself, like in the computer, like in wherever your office is. Like take photos to remember like what it was like to be where you are right now, because it will change. It's going to be a lot different. And time has its own ebbs and flows. So it's, sometimes it goes really fast and you do so much in like 3 months, and other times you do the same amount and it takes like 5 years. And you're like, time has its ebbs and flows, but those who stay consistent, and it does,
looking for the hockey stick.
It does get really fast sometimes. And yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, every growth graph looks like a hockey stick. But the other reality is that every growth graph, if you zoom in,
it's waves.
Looks like it's going, like it's stuck. Yeah, because it's waves. Every business. One of my best mentors, a great mentor, shared this with me, and he sold his business for millions of dollars, and it was very successful. And he said, he's like, and I thought this guy was a genius. I was like, how did you do that? You just went straight to hockey stick, like it was just success. And he's like, no, it looked like this. Yeah. It was up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down.
No, it's a very emotional journey.
Out in the right direction.
And so just last week, I think one evening, but I was tired, but I was like, you feel like I'm gonna delete the app. It's stupid. It's not gonna work. It's gonna be fair. Then the next morning, you wake up again and you get you see a good review and you taste it. Say it's not that bad. You're sort of like, you're very optimistic again. The next day, you're feeling like, no, it's a complete mess. It's not gonna work. It's never going to get done. It's emotionally, it's very up and down. It's a very up and down ride, to be honest. But you just need to keep pushing on. There's a really nice clip by Sam Altman, from OpenAI and Y Combinator, that I found on Twitter yesterday about, he's speaking about entrepreneurship at a conference or something. And he said, it touched my heart so much. I sent it to a lot of friends who are in business, and basically just came down to skills matter, and vision and the right product and product market fit, etc., and so on. But the most important thing, and I can't articulate it as nicely, that you can go and Google it maybe, is entrepreneurs deal with failure and they don't give up. I know it sounds so cliche, but it's like you constantly daily get bombarded with problems after problems after problem. And it sort of wears you out in a way, especially if there's a lot of problems every day and you don't take care of yourself. It wears you out. So at some point, when you give up, it's just too much. They can't handle all the problems. So once I realized, I feel like that's so many times, even with our business here, and in South Africa as well, there's so many problems. And it's just every day, it doesn't stop. It's just like this flywheel of problems. And as long as you don't let it wear you out, you can sort of zoom out, uh, get a bigger perspective, and know that every entrepreneur and business owner struggles with the same thing. This is normal. Then you feel like, okay, that's not bad. It's normal. It's just problems. It's life. It's business. So yeah, you just need to push through and keep solving until the success comes.
Wow, so much wisdom in that, Erin. Uh, what a way to end that off! And I just want to say thank you so much for this awesome conversation. I've enjoyed the entire thing. It's great. Like, you have a very cool story. Uh, so where, if someone wants to learn more about Pencil Bible,
Just
where can they find it,
pencilbible.com.
and how can
I
they
got
reach
a
out to
great
you?
domain name, so it also helps with marketing, I think. I haven't done SEO, but pencilbible.com is the domain. And you can get all the information and where to download it from there.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks, Erin.
Thank you.
This has been a real
Appreciate it,
connection,
Jonathan. It's an
and
honor.
very much.
Let's go.